Good afternoon, Michael Havers here from Penn News, and today I'm in Stevenage, which is a swing seat, or a marginal constituency. From 1997 through to 2010, this seat went to Labour, in other words the entire time they were in government. But since 2010 it's been represented by Stephen McPartland, who was a Conservative MP. Fast forward to today, and Mr McPartland has announced that he will not be seeking re-election to Parliament. I wouldn't worry about him, the man's never struggled to find a job before. But I remember being a local reporter here back in the day and being at the Leisure Centre just around the corner in 2015 on election night and watching the results come in. And the Labour Party really thought they could win here. But of course, as we know, the story of the 2015 general election was not a happy one for the Labour Party. Could this year's general election be different? The polls suggest that Labour are on course to win. Are they on course to win here in Stevenage too? Let's ask some of the local voters and see how they feel about it. So how do you feel the Conservative government's getting on in this election year? Do you think they're doing a good job?
No, it just seems to be like one calamity after the other with things in the press. I don't think they're doing a good job of running the country. I feel that everyone's feels really poor at the moment. I get that there's a deficit which they go on about, but yeah, I just don't think it's working for people.
Well, I think they've let us down on the boat people to start with. I mean, they're costing us millions of pounds a week, they're telling us, and at the same time you see our ex-servicemen on the ground. They've got nowhere to go. They need medical help as well as mental help, and nobody's doing anything about it, and yet they're pouring millions into these people that got no right to be here.
Right.
If they go through the legal channels, that's fine, but they're not. They're coming over on the boats and they need medical problems. I mean, it takes us months to get a hospital appointment, doesn't it? But obviously if they're ill, they go straight up, don't they?
Disastrous. They completely betrayed the Brexit voters on immigration control. Mm-hmm. It's the biggest invasion since the Norman Conquest. It's like the French didn't help then to stop them, did they? So that's my biggest issue.
I think we've got a cost of living crisis, a housing crisis. I mean, for example, down the road they're building a ton of houses, but they're all like 8-bed rather than something affordable. My generation won't ever be able to buy anywhere. There's not enough funding in schools and the NHS, like they're worked over there. I used to be a school teacher. The hours are insane. There's not enough support for jobs like that, and people in the NHS are just worked off their feet. I don't think what they're doing at the moment is working.
How do you feel about the government this election year? How do you think they're getting on?
Not well.
Not well. What do you think they're doing badly?
For me, it's just the increasing distance from people with their actual legitimate concerns, and I just think there's very little attempt to even try and reach out on that level.
What sort of concerns are you thinking about?
Well, obviously housing crisis is one of the biggest ones, particularly in larger cities. That's the big one. I think the general situation in Gaza is just absolutely criminal, what the government's doing right now, and just utter ignorance of what's going on, and actually encouraging what's going on. I think it's dire.
I don't know, like, what was the guy that was the whip that was in the press the other day because he leaked stuff on Grindr, and it's just like controversial.
William Ragg.
Yeah, and I just don't think that they're in touch with things at the moment. The NHS is an absolute mess. Yeah, I don't know who I'm going to vote for, but I don't think it's going to be Conservative.
I think they've all got it very tough. I think that the Conservatives' hands have been tied because of COVID. Not that I'm fully for Conservative.
And how do you feel about Rishi Sunak?
I thought he did well during the COVID. I quite like him as a person. There's lots of things that people can say, disadvantaged about his wife earning such a lot of money, etc. I think he's done his best. I think his heart is in it.
I don't really have much of an opinion on him. I think he's doing his best, but I think we're funding wars and we're putting money into things that we really shouldn't, and there's better ways to spend the money on.
It's in a real muddle. I thought he'd be good, our Prime Minister, but he keeps promising things but they don't fulfil them.
Mr Sunak, you mean?
Yeah.
How do you think he compares to, say, for example, someone like Boris Johnson?
I thought he would have been good, Boris Johnson, to be honest with you, but he let himself down badly, didn't he, with those parties? I mean, they thought they could get away with it. That was absolutely ridiculous, wasn't it? I did like Boris Johnson, but he just let us down badly with the way he carried on at the parties and that. I mean, I don't know where his brain had gone at that time, I really don't.
And before we continue, can I just invite you to check out the Pen News Substack at pennews.substack.com. That's pennews, pennews.substack.com, where you upload all of our weekly Vox Pops in full with analysis, as well as all the other stories we're working on in the course of the week. And if you're already watching on Substack, can I encourage you to check out our YouTube channel, where we also upload our Vox Pops and other video content that we're working on. Alright, that's it for now. Let's carry on. How do you feel about the government? How do you think they're doing at the moment?
I think it could get worse under the Labour government, I think.
Right.
As far as immigration is concerned, haven't got a plan. Now, you can argue that the plan which the Conservatives have got is not viable, but what is the alternative? That's how I see it. Now, the other thing that worries me about the Labour Party is the unions. You give them too much power. With the Labour Party, you get trade unions stronger.
Have you got any thoughts about how you're going to be voting in the next election?
I don't really put much consideration in because they're all as bad as each other. The Stevenage Council has betrayed the Stevenage people by allowing the building of new flats and houses for people in Cambridge and London, not the kids from Stevenage.
And the council's Labour, isn't it?
Yeah. So I can't really support them on that side.
So I am, for the first time, going to vote Lib Dem, mainly because I do not support Labour, and particularly on the Gaza situation, I just can't bring myself to vote for Labour. So I will only vote for a party that's calling for a ceasefire. Maybe on the day I'll change my mind if it feels tighter than it has in the past, because I know it's a contested seat. But I would just really struggle to tick that box.
Yeah. What is it? Is it the Gaza situation?
Yeah, that's really it. My family is Jewish. Yeah. But because of that, I am against what Israel is generally doing, because it is just utterly opposed to my ideology, essentially. So yeah, I think that is the issue that's really getting in my gut over Labour right now.
Labour are riding high in the polls at the moment. Do you have any confidence in them?
No, not Rick. I don't like him, Richard. He keeps saying, he changes his mind too much, doesn't he? He says one thing and a couple of months later he's saying something else. I can't think of an instance at the moment, but you know, I really don't know. I am reading the leaflets, but it's believing them, isn't it, you know? Sure. You've got to try and pick the best out the worst, really, haven't you? Yeah. It's just with the election coming up, you're going to get all these promises, and when they get in, they find an excuse. Oh, we can't do it because we haven't got the money. We didn't know this, and we didn't. Yeah. It's a terrible muddle, I think, our politics at the moment.
The trouble with Labour, for me, is that I don't really think that they're a credible alternative. I think that they haven't really said what they stand for, and they're very good at pointing out the problems but not necessarily giving the solutions. Right. I don't really know what I'd get from a Labour government, and if I'm being honest, I'm going to vote selfishly, so I need to see what all the manifestos are of all the parties and work out what's going to financially stack up best for my family. It would just be good to have the election announced, the parties can begin campaigning, and so we can really see what everyone stands for.
Yes. Labour, could they win you over, or is it just if the government does bad enough you'll just won't vote?
Exactly, that's how I feel.
Yeah, okay.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
If anything, I'm going to vote for Conservatives.
Right.
I haven't really, it's not 100%.
Yeah.
The economy is showing signs of picking up. The waiting list to the hospital is coming down much gradually. The waiting line to see a doctor is a little bit iffy. I can't get I'm on the medication. Right. I need to see my doctor sometimes and I can't see him. I have to wait for a telephone call. He's going to phone back on May the 20th. Right. Which is 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Now I find that a little bit disturbing.
Rishi Sunak, with his big pledge to stop the boats, if he doesn't make good on that, is he going to lose your vote?
Yeah, totally.
If it's not going to be Conservatives because they've lost your vote, would you just stay home, or do you think you might take your vote somewhere else?
I'd vote Reform. If they've got more than anyone else.
What are your thoughts about Keir Starmer?
He's not likeable for me. I think he's a bit wet behind the ears. It's not forthright, you know.
Have you given any thought to how you'll vote this election yet?
That is a good question. I don't know, because if it's for somebody local here, that would be my sway. That would be who's going to take and what somebody in Stevenage is going to do for us.
And have you given any thought to how you might vote this election year?
Probably Labour. Being a teacher, we tend to vote Labour.
And how do you feel about Keir Starmer?
don't really have much of an opinion.